So now you've got your environment set up, all the colors and materials popping, but you definitely need to see everything, right? So to do so, we're going to add our lighting. And lighting works in Blender similar to the way it does in real life, in the sense that we can have a big bright sun. So I'm going to add the sunlight to this scene by clicking on Shift A, and I'll go to light and sun. And you can see the tremendous difference that we have in this scene compared to how it was before. And take note, the sun was added to this particular area here because the cursor is currently at this distance. So let's say, for example, let me delete everything and reset the cursor, Shift C. And if I were to add the sunlight here, let me say Shift A, sunlight, you can see that the environment is still lit up the same way. However, the object that represents the sun is now positioned at the bottom, at the origin of the scene. So we're just going to move it up a bit. So you see it has no influence as to the light and shadows that is cast on this surface, but what will have influence is the rotation. So now let's say we wanted to have the sunlight at this position, shining on this area and casting the shadow of the leaves towards the right side of the scene. I can select the sunlight and also ensure that I switch to the 3D cursor as my transform pivot point. And that's because I want to be able to rotate along the central point, that's the origin point. So I can now go ahead to click on R, and you can see that now I can rotate the sunlight along that area there. So let's say we have this. I think I want just a little bit shadow on the chair there. Good. So once you've done that, we can now see some properties over at the properties panel. And right here, you can see this green bulb icon here. And this is because the sunlight is selected. So we can see this option for the light properties. If I select the rock, it's just going to be our regular material properties that we have in the properties panel. So that's what happens when you select light and other objects. So we're going to select the light and select the properties option for the light, and we can see here that we have the sun selected. We also have other options of switching the type of light source, in the sense that if I wanted to use a point light, despite the fact that I added the sunlight initially, I can actually switch to a point light. The point light works like a bulb, so it depends on the power, that's the watts, that is assigned to that light. You can see as I crank it up, it's acting like a bulb that's just lighting up this area here. So I can switch to the sunlight and it's not giving us that kind of it's not pleasant right now. So I need to go back to strength of, that was 1 or 2, and this is more pleasing to the eyes. So you can also have a spotlight, and it works the same way. The spotlight gives this conical shape to your view, depending on the area that that conical shape here is facing. So in this case, since the light is positioned here and the base of the cone is towards the table set, we can now see that effect. You can also work on the radius of the spotlight, and you can see the effect that you're getting there. The last type of light here is the area light, where it kind of works like a floodlight, and it has this shape here that defines the shape of the light source. So the wider it is, the broader the effect of, you know, the light on that surface. Now you can actually change the shape of the light. Currently it's set to square, so you can switch to rectangle, disc, and all that depending on the effect you want. I would leave it as square. So right now I want to just work with sun, so I have to switch back to the power of 2 so that we can see better for the sunlight. So I think I like this effect for the sunlight, but I'm not done just yet. We also have another feature here where we can work with nodes. Now nodes help us to have an extensive way to work with our light effects. Nodes can also be used for materials. However, in this course we're not talking about using nodes for setting up materials, but just so you know, we have this shading tab here that if I click on it, you can see here that there is this empty space here, and if I click on use nodes, you can see that it activated this use nodes button here and added these square shapes here. These are called the nodes, where it's currently feeding in the emission node into the light output. That means that I can influence the color, that's the tone of the light. So you can see I just tapped on the color or the strength. I can crank it up and you can see that it's sharper. And as I'm doing so, you can see that even in this panel here, I am also getting the same effect. So if I did not even want to come to the shading panel, that would have been okay. I can remain in the layout panel and still work on the nodes option here. So I think I like how strong the sunlight is.